Have you ever wondered how a sound evolves from a spark of an inspiration into a fully fledged genre? So, the inflection points and unexpected influences. The things that shaped my sound in the beginning was progressive rock, metal, and pop artists. Believe it or not, like Marina and the Diamonds, I discovered these artists on my teen years when I started playing guitar. And at the same time, I discovered Primus. Primus had a huge influence on me when I first listened to them. I was really amazed how their sound was so raw and pure. Also might have laughed my ass off when I listened to them for the first time because their music was so weird and so goofy. Yeah, I started my journey on synths with plugins that were on sale. I started to tweak everything, not knowing what I was doing, and made some tracks. I think the first track I made, it's not even released. It was this track called Burning Palaces, and I still might have it somewhere. I might put a snippet to here somewhere. But yeah, that was the first time I started producing with synths. It was just trial and error mentality when I produced those first tracks, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have any money to put on synths or plugins, so I made everything work with what I got at the time. I still use every plugin. I started with Air's Hybrid 3 and the Isotopes Iris 2. They are my go-to plugins at the moment. I wrote a lot of music with my cousin Nicky, and he makes industrial metal by the name of Judas. We had a couple of projects while I was just starting out on recording my own stuff. He had a huge influence on me on how I structure my tracks, specifically how I structure my tracks. Because without Nicky's help, I wouldn't know how choruses works, how fucking verses work. I wouldn't have any know-how to structure the songs without him. So I owe him a huge amount of respect from giving those lessons to me. Yeah, I learned a lot of tricks how to write riffs on guitar, and we had this project called Ase in 2018, and I played bass in it. That was the first time I really got into bass playing and writing on bass. It helped me so much on writing bass stuff to be groovy. At the same time I was starting out on bass, I discovered the Periphery and Nolly's bass riffs. Holy shit, those fucking riffs are so good. I'm gonna put a couple of clips of him playing right here. My god, he's so fucking good on bass. And he's not even a bass player, he's a guitarist. Just started playing bass on Periphery when he got the gig. And his riffs are so complex and so melodic and so fucking groovy at times. I fucking love his style of playing. And I always want to learn how to play those very heavy and also groovy bass lines. I discovered the slapping style bass, and that's one of the tricks I don't know how to do. I know how to slap on bass like a little bit, but I have never learned the proper techniques, and I want to learn those techniques, and I think Primus songs would be nice to start like learning them. But yeah, I love slap bass, and I have had a little bit of slap bass on my songs. On the Synthwave album, I had a lot of slap bass on that album, and When the City Sleeps album, I mean the Synthwave album. And that like started my synth like rock kind of producing style. So yeah, I listened to a lot of synthwave at the time, and I was like, what if I like connect my post-rock background with my earlier tracks, which were almost all were like post-rocky kind of these slow kind of riffs and stuff, and then I add synthwave to it, and then it started. The Vernier Ryan like project started at that time, like really started in 2020, I think. And yeah, since I use, they are pretty like cheap synth plugins, because I don't have any like physical synths yet, because I don't have any money to buy them. So yeah, I'm working with plugins at the moment, and my go-to plugins are Air, Hybrid 3 and Air's Vacuum Pro. Those are the synths I write the synth riffs on them quite often. And I also use Isotope Iris 2 for the background synth action on songs like Time and Illusion. They are from the album When Dreams Become Your Reality. And that album is my most synth-heavy album, in my own opinion. I want to talk a little bit about drum programming and like deconstruct how I build beats and complement the synth rock aesthetic. And I take so much inspiration from prog rock and metal. Bands like Sleep Token and Periphery have shaped the way how I program my drums. I always try to mix things up with the snare positioning, which I mean like it's not always on the third beat. Like I write almost all of my songs are in 4/4 or 6/8 or 4/5 time signatures, and all like my newest tracks are almost all in 4/4, but I make the drum tracks complex by not putting the snare drum always on the third beat. I like mix it up with the like little bit of ghost notes and stuff like that in the middle. And the positioning of the snare drum really, if you get creative with it and you put it like make a groove out of it, like it's not always on third beat, but it still repeats at some points, so you can groove on it. And then put a little bit of ghost notes in places to accent like the hi-hat pattern or something like that. And that makes it really sound like progressive metal, but it's not really, it's kind of simple but still complex, if you know what I mean. And that's how I like try to think when I write drums. I am not a drummer, I'm not writing drums with a kit or anything. I'm just trying to think like how I can accent the musical part, like the guitars and synths, with the drum patterns and the hi-hats and the crashes and shinas and splashes and every kind of cymbal. And the cymbal work is like just, it's like normal, like how it's called, it's normal, like not, yeah, the crash patterns are quite normal, but then I accent, like add a little bit of flash, if you can say, with splashes and shinas and right cymbal. And I accent the synth parts and lead guitar parts very often. And if I have a really heavy riff, I add those cymbals to like make it more heavier, like in the third beat or like stuff like that. It makes the drums sound more alive, in my opinion. And yeah, let's talk about the future sound where synth rock goes next, in my opinion, and in my case, in Vernier Ryan's music, where it's going and the future of my music. My current inspirations have been kind of the same for the past like 2 years, I think. I discovered David Maxim Mikic. I'm sorry if I butcher your name, dude. I don't know how to say your name. But yeah, he's a solo artist from Serbia, and he makes so beautiful and so complex this like progressive metal and fusion kind of stuff. And he has this album called Who Beat the Moon, which in my opinion it sounds like a dark Disney movie. And that's, if I feel uninspired, I listen to that album and I feel inspired again, because that album has like every kind of musical style you want, and it has the high parts, the really happy parts, really low parts, like these dark twisted kind of feelings. And yeah, the album is so good, like 10 out of 10 in my books. No skippable tracks, everything is on point. But yeah, he does YouTube. I watch his stuff on production and stuff like that, and he inspires me really because he does everything by himself. Not like everything, but like he writes by himself, he like produces by himself, and he shows everything to you, the viewer, like how he does stuff, and he's not afraid of like anything about that, and that inspires me a lot, that I can trust my instinct when I'm mixing or producing or making drum tracks or like writing riffs, because I was so afraid of not doing everything correctly and then posting a video where I say something that is not really great technique, for example on production or mixing or mastering. But if it were, I always think nowadays that if it works for me and people like the music I produce, then what's the issue? Like if I'm always saying I'm doing things incorrectly, and I don't know, I'm not like a producer and I don't know how to produce, but I know what sounds good. So yeah, David Maxim Mikic is one of my biggest inspirations nowadays. And then comes Bring Me the Horizon, and their choruses are just so melodic and vibey, and that has been a great inspiration for my own choruses. And then I have been listening a lot of this band called The Midnight, which I would call a synth pop, synth wave, and synth poppy, rocky kind of sounds. Like it sounds like 80s to me, and they have been huge inspiration on my synth writing. Like I've been writing these synth lines that are not really complex, but the synth sound is really complex and really full. So when I'm layering those kind of synths together and making these like, how can I say that, this kind of love soundtrack, kind of those like super happy and inspiring like riffs on synth, and I then put like really heavy guitar riffs on top of that. It makes this really kind of complex sound that is like really inspiring to me, and I hope for you guys too. But yeah, to me it's really inspiring to like listen to those newer tracks, which they have like this, they have more soul in them, in my opinion, than my older songs. And The Midnight has been a huge inspiration on writing those kind of riffs on the synth. And then upcoming experiments, and my upcoming music has a bit of a different vibe to it, because I got a new bass guitar a couple of days ago, and I'm gonna show you guys. It's a Squier. I'm gonna put that off. Wait a moment. So yeah, without the background blur, it's a Squier jazz bass, and it's the vintage modified series with Seymour Duncan's. And this was actually my father's guitar, my late father's. He died in 2023, unfortunately. And I finally got this bass saved from my mother's house because it was just laying there unused, and I was thinking that I needed a new bass and I didn't want to buy anything. So I was trying this out, and it's so amazing bass for the price that it was in 2010. And yeah, it's 2010 model, and this has inspired me a lot on writing these melodic kind of riffs, like these rock and roll kind of riffs, because my dad always played like this rock and roll kind of stuff like AC/DC and like this hard glam rock style stuff in his band when he still could play. And it has inspired me because when I play this guitar, I'm thinking about those memories I have with him, like when he was playing, like listening to some songs and just playing and jamming to it at home when I was like in my teen years. And it really inspires me to play not like the same way he did, but the same style as that he did and he played. And that has really inspired me to write these kind of rock. Like they have the Vernier Ryan sound, the songs, but it's more like melodic and more danceable, in my opinion, these new songs. And yeah, that's all about this bass. Let's get to the main point. Yeah, that's all I have to say for today about this musical kind of synthwave rock, post-rock kind of vibes that my music has. And yeah, I hope you get some insight what I'm thinking about. Like, this very all over the place, this whole video. But I wanted to make it because I wanted to talk about this. And yeah, tell me in the comments how you got into synth-based music. Like, if it's pop, if it's synthwave, if it's anything like electronic, like EDM kind of synth music. How did you get into it? And what was the first song where you fell in love with the synth sounds? Because the first song I fell in love with synths, I think, like really fell in love with synths. I need to check what was the first, like really first song I got into when I was younger. The first song that I got into was Steven Wilson's Routine, and that song has the best like synth and this orchestral section and this choir section in it, and it has that whole album, the Hand Cannot Erase album, was really the first time I got into music which synth was an instrument. It wasn't just in the background or like doing the same stuff for 3 minutes in the song, but it really like moved the tracks along and it blended everything together. And yeah, that was the first time I fell in love with the synth sounds. But tell me, what was the first song you fell in love with? And yeah, that's all from today, and I see you next time. Yeah, bye.